Love this country. It's not a crime. So let's talk about it with Alex Deane, Conservative commentator. Alex, the Culture Secretary has criticised the BBC's sneering attitude after its breakfast TV hosts appeared to mock Robert Jenrick for displaying the Union flag in his office during an interview. What's your reaction?
Well, they did mock him, and I think Oliver Dowden's completely right to call out the BBC. I agree with everything that you just said, Mark, about our country, and I'm very proud to be British, and I would call myself someone who's patriotic. But even if you're not, and even if those aren't your views, if you are employed by the British Broadcasting Corporation, I think if you're not willing to be positive about the UK, then the least you can do is be professional and not titter, sneer and laugh when a minister of the Crown, quite rightly and naturally, has a flag of the country of which he's a minister and a picture of its head of state on his wall.
Indeed, a government figure in the United States would probably lose their job if they didn't do an interview with the US flag behind them. The president has the stars and stripes on his lapel.
And the irony of that, Mark, is that these journalists would never laugh at any other politician flying any other flag. It's only our flag that they're embarrassed by. It's only our flag they think it's okay to sneer at and laugh at. If they had an interview with a French minister and he had the tricolour behind them, do you think they'd laugh and make a joke about the size of it? I don't.
Indeed not. And for me, what sticks in the craw, Alex, is that we are paying through the nose for this Britain bashing.
We've got to dismantle the BBC. Its time has well and truly passed the time when we've got to stop this ridiculous farce. The BBC is awash in a jacuzzi of cash, said one former Director General of the BBC. Now, I feel sorry for this Director General, who must be tearing his hair out, who declares that he's going to have a new overhaul of the BBC to try and ensure that they're not displaying their overt bias and prejudices, and then has this happen the very day that he tries the next stage of reform. But I'm afraid the ship has sailed. It's irreformable, it's unsalvageable. They should scrap it now. And it's, the beauty of not being elected as I am is that you can say what you really think.
Alex, knock yourself out. Fill your boots. This is Talk Radio. And I'm sure in a minute I'll get someone on the show that thinks the opposite. And that is the beauty of diversity of opinion. Something missing from so much of the output on the BBC. I think it became very toxic during Brexit.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. People always see their own political perspectives reflected or not in broadcasters. And, some people on the left think that the BBC is biased against them. Some people on the right think the BBC is biased against them. I don't actually think the BBC, it is a soft centre-left organisation up and down. But what they really are is quite a snobbish, anti-British, anti-Brexit organisation. It's not actually a left-right issue. There's plenty of people on the left who wanted us to leave the European Union. 5 million habitual Labour voters voted to leave the EU, a voice never heard in the course of that debate on the BBC. The left-wing case for leave was never basically allowed on.
Yeah, it was basically Nigel Farage that had to carry the can for the whole thing.
Correct. But my point, Mark, is that from the BBC's perspective, I'm not talking about left or right now. They just think that it's elitist and it's an institution that thinks that it knows best. And when it hates something like Brexit, it's very obvious. And when they sneer at our country and ministers who have a flag in their office, it's very apparent that they don't know people who are outside that bubble. Those journalists laughed at a minister flying the flag because all their friends would laugh, because all of the people they spend time with would laugh, because the people who occupy their very small metropolitan area would laugh. So the one thing that might save the BBC, that might frustrate my desire to have it broken up, is if this Director General gets it right, and if he reforms it and moves things out, and if all of it goes to Salford, or so much of it goes to Birmingham, or they really start seeing the rest of our great country. And, in one view, I hope he fails, and we can have the apocalyptic destruction of the BBC they seem determined to have. But, he's got a lot of pressure on him.
Well, indeed, Alex, although if you look at a network like BBC Radio 5 Live, they've gone up to Salford and there are some talented people on that radio station. But my goodness, it's as woke as you get. So moving north doesn't seem to have helped. And
it's all the same stuff. There's a reason that comedy's fallen through the floor in the BBC. It's all the same predictable, Tory bashing tropes and the same sneering jokes about the right and exceptionally woke PC, unfunny pseudo-wit. So that's all a disaster. But I don't really That in the end is just bad broadcasting. That's different from this kind of laughing at our own country and showing us that there's people who do that. That's corrosive and much worse. Andrew Neil, as he so often does, got it right when he said this is an organisation that seems ashamed of the British in BBC.
Indeed, I think that's a really good point, and that's why we're talking about it in today's show. This is an important cultural issue. It's, I think, a very divisive moment, actually, to see these two high-profile, well-paid presenters laughing about the flag. And the whole point is, actually, if Britain as a project is to be successful and to navigate its way out of this pandemic, we're going to have to come together as a nation. If you look at America, there are lots of different groups in America. It's in its own way quite a divided country. But everyone in America gets behind the flag. And America is the most successful country in the world.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think we could do with a bit more of the open and overt sense of patriotism that the Americans have. But even if we can't get there, Mark, and if that's going to be a cultural thing that takes a generation, let's agree that we've not anywhere near it yet. Well, not only do we have broadcasters laughing at a minister because he's got the flag and the picture of the Queen in his office, but when after that, despite their guidelines on not showing their bias in social media, they go off to Twitter and like posts about the flag shaggers being up in arms, and this should be done every time the Tories roll out one of their talking head ministers, promptly liked by the presenter. You know, an apology in the end was dragged out of Munchetty because I think her position was in jeopardy. Classic non-apology apology. I'm sorry if for any offence that you might have felt, rather than, more honestly, I'm not sorry, I do rather regret being caught.
Absolutely. It was a non-apology. Fascinating stuff, Alex. Let's do it again soon. Alex Deane is a broadcaster and Conservative commentator.